Hi. Hello. One of the questions I get asked most often when people hear that I like to travel is what my favorite trip is. And every single time I try to answer that question and I end up listing every place I went to that year because I can't decide. It's hard, they're all wonderful. But today I want to try to sit down and look back at the trips I took in 2019 and see if I can, I don't know, either rank them or just give you 5 of them and what I think about them. We'll see which direction it goes in. 2019 was incredible. I did quite a bit of traveling, explored new places, revisited a few old favorites. In all, I went and partied in Las Vegas, caught massive tuna off the coast of the Outer Banks in North Carolina, had espressos in Paris and zipped through the streets on electric scooters, hiked through jungles in Costa Rica, watched the sunset over the San Francisco Bay, drank wine in Napa Valley, lost myself in the deep blue abyss of Crater Lake. I still think about that at least once a day. Made a stop through Portland in between the beautiful scenery of the West Coast, visited friends in Seattle, Washington, D.C., and my old college town, Boone. Got an adventure Jeep and went off-roading in Hawaii. Did an epic road trip around New Zealand. I'm still working on that video, it's coming soon, I promise. Filmed a wedding one weekend in Vermont. Finally saw Los Angeles, made a very brief stop in Mexico, and explored more of New York State. So, picking a favorite on this list is going to be hard. I'm just going to jump into it. The first one that comes to mind, San Francisco. What's cool about San Francisco, like a lot of West Coast cities, is its proximity to nature. Beaches are awesome. I mean, here, if you want to go to a beach from Manhattan or Brooklyn, you have to ride the train an hour out to the Rockaways. They're not really far, it's just kind of hard to get there. So I liked that in San Francisco it was so easy. And we also rented bikes and hopped on the Golden Gate Bridge and took it across the bay to Sausalito. And if you go up on the hills, you get that famous view of the Golden Gate Bridge that looks out over San Francisco in the background. Also, I'm kind of an architecture city geek, so seeing these insanely steep hills and like super winding streets was really cool. I could also go on about the coffee scene. I have this magazine right behind me. This one, Drift Magazine, which this edition is only about San Francisco. I read this before I went and checked off a few of these spots. It's also a fun way to see a new city if you just pick out a couple of coffee shops and bounce around those and plan your day that way. And we were there in the middle of this really weird heat wave, so we didn't have any of that famous San Francisco fog, which is, I guess, kind of nice because we could actually see the city in the morning. I would like to find an excuse to go back there. Also, I just really love California and all the cities that are right along the coast. I keep going back there and I would like to keep that trend. So yeah, San Francisco, recommend. I'm already failing at this because I don't know which one of these I would recommend more. All right, next up, number 4, Crater Lake, Oregon. Just because this place is kind of crazy. Again, it was the summer when I was there, but when we got to the top of the mountain, there was just snow everywhere. This is Oregon, so it makes sense, but I was a little bit shocked. The only negative was that those mosquitoes or flies or whatever they were just were like swarming you constantly. Going back, I would bring bug spray and it would probably be okay. We didn't use it until like the last few hours that we were there, and it was effective, so we should have done that sooner. This could be a really fun destination if you're just looking to chill or do some work from somewhere that's not too far domestically. Also, the sunrises and sunsets across the lake are spectacular. There are probably cheaper places to go if you want to be remote. This is more of a cushy luxury experience, but it's definitely worth it. Number 3 is, what is it? Can I do this? I don't know, I think this city just has a special place in my heart, and it's Paris. This year was my second time going. I went there a year. I went there, 2 years ago now. Oh my God, it's 2020. 2018, I went to Paris with one of my best friends and got to see all of the big touristy things. So this time around, I wasn't as concerned with trying to check all those off. Actually, the entire purpose of the trip was to see Childish Gambino because we missed out on the Madison Square Garden tickets and thought it'd be fun. Found an insanely cheap flight if you go on Google Flights and just put in a place, but no time. You can figure out when the cheapest time to go is. We just did a lot of eating. Oh, and the scooters, which was a lot of fun. And Paris is heavily romanticized by Americans, but I think it is deserving of that because the entire city, every inch of it is just beautiful. And I think being there with a fun crowd is what made that trip one of the more memorable ones. Next up, What is this, number 4, 3, 2? Is this number 2? Am I actually ranking these? Hawaii. This was my second time in Hawaii, and I explored 2 new islands, Maui and the Big Island. I actually flew there from Seattle to meet up with my friend Tim so we could film a wedding anniversary, and then we were like, hey, we both came all this way, why not just stay and explore for a little bit? So a friend of a friend that happens to live on the Big Island was super kind and let us stay with her for a couple of days and showed us around as sort of like a preview of her adventure company, which you can book. I think that was my first time off-roading in a 4-wheel drive vehicle, and so it was probably an hour-ish to get out to that green sand beach we went to. Having a drone and trying to capture a landscape or follow a moving vehicle is a lot of fun. Actually, on our way back, in some of the shots that are in the vlog, I was trying to come around and look at the window so we could wave out, and I looked at the camera and I was like, why are we not visible? And I realized at some point we had crossed paths with another white Jeep, and I ended up following them. Probably freaked them out a little bit because there's just a drone circling around their Jeep. So some of the clips in the vlog are not actually us. I don't know who it is. And each island of Hawaii has such a different landscape. I mean, Oahu, the island I went to last summer, again, 2018, because it's 2020. Time is moving. Yeah, Oahu was mostly jungle and had the big city of Honolulu, which was fun for the food scene. And then the Big Island is a little bit more spread out, well, obviously because it's the largest island, but the population's not as densely packed. So there's a lot of like little towns and naturey things to go explore. Yes, that is where the volcano was that you heard about in the news. No, it did not destroy as much as they made it out to seem. It's on the far corner. I really didn't even see the effects of it where I was at, but that is a question I get asked a lot. It also has that massive 14,000 foot volcano that we tried to drive to the top of before we just about ran out of gas.
40? We oh boy.
Might not actually have enough gas to get to the top.
Literally.
Or back down into the airport. And I can't even, the video doesn't even capture what it looks like to have that stretching out before you and disappearing behind the clouds. Like, it's so big. You can't even tell. It's just like, oh, there's a hill that goes up forever. And then, because you can't take a boat between the islands so as to not like cross-contaminate the ecosystem, we took a really cheap flight to Maui, where we spent the rest of the trip. And there's a windward and a not windward opposite side of the island. And on one side, it's kind of deserty and shrubby, and there's not much vegetation over there, but it has some really beautiful beaches and good places to snorkel. And it has its own massive 10,000-ish foot volcano that we did successfully get to the top of without running out of gas. And then the opposite side has the road to Hana, which is like this jungly drive for the first bit, wraps around the southern end of the island and then takes you back across. So it's weird how fast the landscape goes to like always raining on this jungly side to just being dry and kind of desolate on the volcanic side. So yeah, so I think this holds number 2 for its landscape uniqueness. I'm doing this. And then I think that leaves us with New Zealand, which I'm not going to say too much about because I'm making a whole video about it, but we've spent 15 days there on both islands, north and south. It was awesome. Yeah, I mean, they filmed The Lord of the Rings there, so driving around kind of just feels like you're in some epic blockbuster movie. We rented a Mercedes Sprinter camper van and did a whole loop around the South Island. And I think what blew me away most about that entire trip was how remote some of these spots were. Because you drive to some of these cities and there's one road in and one road out. I think it's a perfect place if you want to explore it by camper van, because everything, the systems are super easy, the infrastructure is there for it. A lot of people told us not to go in the winter because it would be miserably cold, and they said there's not as much to do, but I think just the beauty of being there with all of the snow on the mountains. And it wasn't too cold. I mean, the van had heat while we were sleeping at night, so we didn't freeze. But the good part about being there during the off season is we were the only people parking in most of the places we went to. We didn't really have to fight crowds at all. We could just walk into any restaurant, and most of the time we'd be the only people in there. So yeah, after all these travels, came back to New York and had to do a lot of work and a lot of editing. I got to do some more exploring upstate during peak week of the fall foliage. in a little town called Fishkill. I was there filming a project, and it was a good little break for a weekend, just riding the one wheel through the woods and seeing all the trees. Thanksgiving happened. My parents came up to the city for a couple of days and I showed them around, and we ended up going to the Macy's parade, which was super cool to see. And it wasn't as savage as Times Square. You could just take the subway and walk out onto the street and get a good spot early. But it was cool seeing the big balloons come through and some of the celebrities on the floats, like Jimmy Fallon. He was there. And then towards the end of December, I drove down to North Carolina. Which brings us to the final days of 2019. I've been in North Carolina for about a week, spending time with family. I showed my friends how to ride the one wheel. That was a lot of fun. They were some of the first people that were able to just get on it and go. So I'm proud. They're gonna probably move to New York and join my fleet. Driving back to New York now, but I'm gonna make a quick stop in Raleigh to pick up a good friend of mine so we can hang out for New Year's. So yeah, 2019 was pretty, a little bit all over the place, but overall wonderful. It was my first year being here in New York. I'm really looking forward to 2020. Doing some planning and organizing right now because I'm gonna try, for real this time, to make a lot more videos this year. If you would like to see those, press the subscribe button. But that is all for now. That's my ruminations on 2019, and I'll see you soon with that New Zealand video. I promise. It's looming. It's on the horizon.